Hello everyone, my name is Natalia Viktorovna Yengay. I am from NIS Taldykurgan, and the topic of our seminar is Formative Assessment for Reading, Grade 10, Unit Stress and Fear. The aim of this seminar is to clarify formative assessment tools for reading in accordance with learning objectives, and we have some sub-questions. What formative assessment tools could be used in accordance with learning objectives, and what is the role of feedback? Some background about formative assessment. 1967. Michael Scriven introduces the term formative assessment to indicate the evaluation of a program during the planning and developmental stages and making changes in the program for the purpose of improvement. 1977. Benjamin Bloom identified two essential elements of formative learning: feedback for students and corrective conditions for all important components of learning, which led to differentiated instruction. 1988. Terence Crooks studied the effect of classroom assessment practices on students and asserted that classroom formative assessment is one of the most powerful forces for improving education and positively affects student motivation. 1989. Roy Sadler found that assessment is most effective when students can monitor the quality of their own work through specific provisions that are incorporated directly into instruction. So, formative assessment generates timely student achievement information to monitor individual student progress and to evaluate instructional effectiveness. At the same time, we can't forget about crucial features of formative assessment. They are learning progressions, learning goals and success criteria, descriptive feedback, self and peer assessment, and collaboration. The role of feedback is very important. Evidence-based teaching, Professor John Hattie, the author of Visible Learning, answers the question how to give effective feedback to your students, and he suggests two steps. The first one, tell your student about their current level of performance, and the second, tell them what they could do to improve. Examples of feedback that can have negative consequences. Feedback that is crucial. This work is very poor. You have not tried hard enough. Feedback that is comparative and indicates a student's standing relative to peers. Your understanding of this idea is much weaker than the other students in the class. You will need to redo the work to catch up. Feedback that draws attention to the student rather than the task. You are a good student. I am very pleased with you. And feedback provided in relation to a poorly defined goal. Write 2 more paragraphs. At the same time, the practice presents that not all teachers understand the meaning of criteria and descriptors. Criteria make it clear to students what factors will be taken into account when making judgments about their performance. Assessment criteria provide for students the answer to the question, what do I have to do? Descriptors provide the answer to the question, how do I do that? Descriptors provide further information in more detail about what would be required to demonstrate achievement at the different levels. Turning back to our seminar and to our unit, there are some hot tips here. As we understand, learning objectives are closely linked with formative assessment, and only after it you can provide summative assessment for the students. As you can see, there are 5 reading learning objectives for the unit Stress and Fear. The first one, understand main points in extended texts on a range of unfamiliar general and curricular topics. Reading 2. Understand specific information and detail in extended texts on a growing range of familiar general and curricular topics and some unfamiliar topics. Reading 3. Understand the detail of an argument both explicitly stated and implied in extended texts on a wide range of familiar general and curricular topics and some unfamiliar topics. And reading 5. Reduce meaning from context in extended texts on a wide range of familiar general and curricular topics and some unfamiliar topics. And reading 7. Recognize typical features at word, sentence, and text level in a wide range of reading genres, including some which focus on unfamiliar topics. Let's go to the tasks. And sometimes there is the question, is a sentence a text? Yes, it is. And formative assessment could be used at any stage of the lesson. And what about starter? For example, you can use true or false statements at the start of your lesson. For example, all stress is bad. There is nothing you can do about stress. It happens and you endure it. Nothing bad can happen to me from too much stress. Okay, let's look how it works with learning objective. Understand main points on a range of unfamiliar general and curricular topics. Turning back to the criteria question, what do I have to do? It could be said that learners need to read the statement, understand the common idea of the statement, make reasoning on the perspective using personal experience. Answering the descriptor question, how do I do that? Learners need to use active vocabulary and give examples on the statement. Make a relevant argument to describe their point of view. As you can see, learners work in small groups, sharing the ideas and identifying the statements which could be true or false in accordance with the task.
False, because in stressful situation people make decisions faster. And for example, when a person runs from dangerous, this person runs faster and
avoid the danger. Okay, what about you, your group? What do you think? Whether the statement true or false?
We are absolutely agree with the group, and this statement is false because stress helps our bodies to produce special hormones which help us to survive our lives and to be slim.
Okay. Okay, your answers.
It is false.
It is false.
Because we see that other people have more difficult problems than our exams or school. So it's true or false?
It's false. Okay, what about your group? What do you think?
We think that it is false because, as Jan said, other people have more global problems and our problems can be solved by ourselves because it can be solved if we destroy our laziness or something else.
Such troubles.
We don't feel enough tension.
As an example could be used the text "I cut off my arm to survive" from English in Mind 5. Here you can use two learning objectives. Understand main points in extended texts on a range of unfamiliar, general, and curricular topics, and recognize typical features at word, sentence, and text level in a wide range of written genres, including some which focus on unfamiliar topics. The task is: which two of the following points does the article not raise? Here you can see the criteria which could be applied for these learning objectives. Learners are able to summarize the ideas of the text and find their reflection in the statements. Descriptors. Learners correlate the statements with descriptors. Learners correlate the statements with information from the text. Learners choose two statements which express text ideas. The survey presented the results that some teachers experience real difficulties when they work with the learning objective, recognize typical features at word, sentence, and text level in a wide range of written genres, including some which focus on unfamiliar topics. Here you can see the example of the task which could be suggested to our students. Put the story on the line graph. Criteria. Learners make the notes how the plot is developed, going to the climax and down into the upshot. Descriptors. Learners denote settings, conflict, attempts to solve the problem, climax, upshot on the graph.
Identify the main moments of the story, and it is a moment when fisherman took a knife and cut his arm, but before it his boat was rocked by stormy weather, and I think it is important too, but less important than main moments. The starting of graphic, it is holding lobster pots up and moments with a winch. After cutting arm, fisherman had interview where he said about his daughter's words. At this moment in the graphics we can see decreasing and it's related to plot. At the end I identified fight or flight response.
Important moments of the plot are shown in my graphic. First of all, dog could result of sea on extremely stormy day is our starting point. Then he's trying to follow lobster pots up, but dog had caught in a winch, so he's having over the side of the boat, unable to free or climb back. Then there is a climax when he's picking up a knife and cutting his right arm. After all of these moments, he's making a confession about him seeing his daughters, and he says in the interview that it was the strength that kicked him to make this decision. And after all of this, there is a conclusion about survival instincts.
Here you can see the example how our students do this work. At the same time, don't forget that feedback is very important. Here you can see the feedback. You are able to identify the key words of the main parts. How would you narrate the main elements of the story? Even if your students make the excellent work, you can write, "Well done. Would you like to change, improve something? Why? Why not?" Going further, let's look at these learning objectives. Deduce meaning from context in extended texts on a wide range of familiar general and curricular topics and some unfamiliar topics. Recognize typical features at word, sentence, and text level on a wide range of written genres, including some which focus on unfamiliar topics. Here you can use the whole text, but at the same time, you are familiar with this type of work. Cut the text on the way you prefer. Suggest learners that they should connect the parts and answer the question. Criteria. Learners are able to make a coherent text, complete the text, and guess about the sources of information. Descriptors. Learners put the information into a logical order, read the information, and complete the text. Learners identify the persons who provide the information.
Secondly, firstly, it is advice. It is advice for readers, so I think it is body parts. First part. Which one?
looks like the first one got a definition of the problems stressed in high school, and there are 3 examples of teenagers who are struggled with school. There is a conclusion, which made it Dr. Aaron.
This is the text which learners get as a result of their work. The title is On the Brink by Emily Ness. You can easily find this text in the internet. As you can see, there are several paragraphs here with the gaps. The task is to complete the text with the following information, and you can see 4 points here. At the same time, there are only 3 gaps in the text. And the second task is to choose the name of the person who provides this information. The same letters could be used several times.
The 6th one is B.
And the last is C.
It was said in third, not in 4th paragraph. Jared Cohen.
It's not a strict rule that only teachers give feedback to students. Students can do it themselves. We generally assume that receiving feedback from another person with a lot more experience in the field is beneficial. Even though an outsider's view can be interesting, feedback doesn't always have to come from the outside. If you want learners to learn to be self-critical throughout their education, or become more skilled and knowledgeable in a given field, they can't rely solely on others' judgments. In those cases, it's better for learners to generate feedback for themselves. Students can use the experience to get diagnostic information on how well they are doing overall and what their specific strengths and weaknesses are. Self-generated feedback actively develops a grasp of criteria and standards, not just through becoming familiar with assessment criteria and standards as outlined in the course, but by gaining experience in applying them to an appropriately demanding task or instance of assessed work. For example, you can see a person wearing a cap and carrying a toolbox. Annotate what has been learned near to the head and ideas, skills, and other positive things that have been gained near the toolbox. Draw a heart on the person and annotate it with feelings. Draw a rubbish bin to show what did not work and what should not be included next time. Using these notes, you can easily monitor the students' achievements and plan your next work for the next set of the lessons.